I'm sure many of us have heard the expression, silence is golden. If we think about it for a moment, it actually makes perfect sense. The great paradox of silence is that while saying something can often compound our problems, sometimes being quiet and still can be a source of wisdom and insight. Seneca talks about this in his letters. He says, "It is not that life is short, but that we waste a lot of it. We squander our lives on trivial pursuits. So how can we get better at being silent? What does that have to do with intimacy?" Well, let's explore these questions together by looking at 3 Stoic practices: silence, breath, and touch. Welcome to the channel. It's me. You can call me the Ancient. I make videos about ancient philosophy for people with anxiety. If you like the sound of that, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. This video is inspired by a wonderful book called The Power of Intimacy by Matthew Hertenstein, who is also my cousin's boyfriend. Shout out to him. In the book, Matt explores what science has to say about love, sex, and relationships. And one of the things that jumped out at me was a discussion of something called the Michelangelo phenomenon. The Michelangelo phenomenon is named after the famous Renaissance sculptor who made David, the creation of Adam on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. Michelangelo was commissioned to sculpt a marble statue for the French king, and he started off doing just that, sculpting a beautiful, idealized version of David. But then midway through, he stopped and he started over. He abandoned the first statue and started again, making a much more realistic, even flawed David. Now this was frustrating for the French king, right? It commissioned a beautiful statue, and instead Michelangelo was making a realistic statue, which was going to take longer and was definitely not what the king had in mind. But Michelangelo didn't care. He said, "I could not do David as a beautiful angel, hair flowing and face turned slightly upward. I did him as a Florentine, hard and severe, twisting his nostril, squinting his eyes, wrinkling his brow. And that is the David that he finished. And that is the David that we know today." So why am I telling you this story? Well, it relates to our discussion of silence. Because there's this idea in psychology, the negativity bias, which basically means that when we are getting feedback, whether it's from someone else or ourselves, we pay more attention to negative feedback than positive feedback. So if your partner gives you any kind of criticism, you might think, "Oh, they never tell me the good stuff. They only tell me the bad stuff," even if that's not true. And likewise, if you're giving feedback to your partner, you might think, "They always focus on the negative, and they never acknowledge the positive." What the Michelangelo phenomenon shows us is that sometimes when we are trying to improve ourselves or improve something, we need to stop focusing on the ideal and start focusing on reality. There's a wonderful quote by the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead that goes, "Enthusiasm is the oxygen of the intellect." So if we bring enthusiasm and excitement to our relationship and to our partnership and say, "Oh, this isn't perfect, but I see the potential. I see what it could be that will help fuel our intellect to see what needs to be improved." I've been talking for years about the importance of bringing curiosity and playfulness into the bedroom. One of the best ways to do that is by incorporating a variety of different sex toys. Now, you don't need sex toys to have a good sex life, but they can enhance your experience and add a little bit of spice. That's why I'm excited to talk to you today about my friends over at Sex with Emily, who make some of the most beautiful, high-quality, ethically sourced sex toys on the market. Okay, now back to the show. When it comes to bringing more silence into our lives, the key, according to Matt Hertenstein, is to be intentional about it. So it's not enough to say, "Well, I'm not going to talk for the next 5 minutes. Instead, he says, bring awareness to your natural tendency to fill every silence with chatter. Accept your discomfort at first, then step back and let go of the impulse to keep talking just for the sake of it. So bring awareness to those impulses. Accept them without judgment, and then practice letting go. When it comes to intimacy, silence can be really powerful. Think about it. The most vulnerable thing you can possibly do is open yourself up to someone else. And the most vulnerable thing that your partner can do is open themselves up to you. So you're both taking risks, and that's terrifying. And that requires a level of trust. And silence can be a way of building that trust. Marcus Aurelius talks about this in Meditations. He says, "You could stop being wounded tomorrow if you chose not to take anything personally." The idea here is that we often get hurt by things that other people say or do. We don't have to take it personally. We don't have to assume that they are attacking us. We can choose to let it go. We can remain calm. We can continue to open ourselves up. And by continuing to open ourselves up, we can build trust. Trust is the foundation of all intimacy, and silence can help us get there. Next, we have breath. Now, this is something I talk about a lot on the channel, and it's something I try to practice every day. Breathing is one of the most important things we do, and yet it's something we rarely pay attention to. Epictetus, the former slave who went on to become one of the most important Stoics, he says, "There is no greater hindrance to the acquisition of wisdom than self-esteem." When we think we already know everything, when we think we have nothing to learn, then we shut down. We stop listening. We stop paying attention. And that's what breath work can help us with. It can help us get out of our heads. It can help us stop thinking we already know everything. It can help us pay attention to the present moment. If you ever do yoga or go to a spinning class or just pay attention to people who are athletes, you'll notice that they always emphasize the importance of breathing. Why? Because the body knows how to breathe. It knows how to pace itself. It knows how to recover. But we often interfere with that. We hold our breath, speed things up. We forget to pay attention to our bodies. So part of what breathwork can help us do is just get out of our heads, stop thinking we know better than our bodies, and allow our bodies to lead the way. And finally, we have touch. This is something I haven't talked about very much on the channel, but I've been thinking about it a lot recently, especially because of Matt Hirschenstein's book. Touch is such a powerful way to connect with others, and yet it can also be really terrifying. We're taught from a young age that if someone touches us, that means that they want something from us. It means that they're trying to use us. And I think this is especially true for women. Women are often taught to view touch from men with suspicion, to think that it's inherently aggressive. But touch doesn't have to be aggressive. It can be gentle. It can be loving. It can be respectful. One of the things that I've been learning is that different kinds of touch communicate different things. There's the handshake, which is very formal. There's the pat on the back, which can be condescending. There's the hug, which is affectionate but also respectful of boundaries. There's the caress, which is intimate and loving. And each of these communicates something different. So learning the difference between these different kinds of touch and communicating with our partners about our boundaries around touch is super important. It can make all the difference between feeling safe and feeling unsafe. And ultimately, if we want to deepen our intimacy, we have to be willing to be vulnerable with our bodies and with our partners, and that takes a lot of courage. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I hope you elves check out the references and read some of the books and studies I talked about. And please remember to hit subscribe and join our growing philosophical community. I'll see you next time.